Lassiter Factor.
What's up, all my movie-loving maniacs? This your boy Bangful B of the Lassiter Factor, and with the Odyssey currently in theaters, I thought I'd take a moment to rank every single Christopher Nolan film from the worst to the best, including the Odyssey. So let's get into it. Coming in last place is Following. And look, I don't necessarily hate this movie or dislike it, I just didn't really care for it. I'm gonna just say this is Christopher Nolan's very first film, and it shows. But I admire the filmmaking, and it's a good little blueprint to show what Christopher Nolan would give us in the films that will follow right after this. At number 12 is Dunkirk, and look, again, I don't hate this movie, I don't dislike it. This is a personal thing for me. I just don't really care for war films. So that's more of a personal taste for me. But at the same time, I can still admire and appreciate the filmmaking on this. I understood what Christopher Nolan was going with this film, but I just don't care for war films. At number 11 is Tenet. And look, Tenet is probably one of the most confusing and just overcooked movies I've ever seen. But it was still an entertaining movie to me, and it's always fun to see Denzel Washington's son get work. If Christopher Nolan says you're good enough to be in my movie, that says something. Despite the fact that I don't get this movie at times, I still have fun watching the action and everything in it whenever I do watch it. At number 10 is Oppenheimer, which probably is a huge hot take for a lot of people. And don't get me wrong, I did like this film, and there's a reason this movie won an Oscar. There's a reason this movie won Christopher Nolan the Best Director Oscar. I just personally like the next 9 movies a lot more than this film for various reasons, but one of those reasons is, look, Christopher Nolan, this is a brilliant film, and I did like the section of the film where we do see the making of the atomic bomb and when it goes off, and I understand that this movie is about the man that made it and the consequences of his invention. But at the same time, Christopher Nolan, you need to go to hell, my dude, because there is no reason for a drama about the guy that made the atomic bomb to be 3 hours. At number 9 is The Prestige, which I did watch for the very first time 2 years ago before Oppenheimer came out. I don't know why this movie just always flew under my radar, but when I did watch it, I was thoroughly impressed, and I love the performances within this one. I do need to watch it again to see if I still echo those sentiments, but number 9 is where I place The Prestige. At number 8 is The Dark Knight Rises, which I'm a little torn on because if it was up to me, I would have this movie just a little bit more higher because I love this movie so much. I'm a huge Batman fan, and I love what Christopher Nolan did with Batman as a character and his world in scope. But at the same time, I also have to look at this from an objective in filmmaking and adult standpoint, and this is clearly the weakest of the Dark Knight trilogy. But all that being said, I fucking love this movie. I thought it was a epic and satisfying conclusion to the trilogy. Tom Hardy as Bane will always be memorable.
Let's not stand on ceremony here, Mr. Wayne.
At number 7 is Insomnia, which I think is his most underrated film. And I know a lot of people have this a little lower, but I ain't gonna lie, it's a little bit nostalgia for me because I used to watch this movie all the time on HBO and Cinemax back in the day, and I didn't even know that this was directed by Christopher Nolan until I was old enough to look up the credits. I'm like, oh shit, the guy that revived Batman made this? For me, this isn't just a good crime drama. This movie also gave us great performances from both Al Pacino, but most notably Robbie Williams. Rest in peace. This is a top 5 performance for Robbie Williams here, right here for me. And I highly recommend you check it out if you haven't. At number 6 is Interstellar, which surprisingly I like more the more I revisit it because I remember when it first came out, I liked it but didn't quite love it, but then I rewatched it for its 10th anniversary. I just found myself really enjoying this movie a lot more, from the visuals to the concepts to the journey and even the characters, and of course the performances from Matthew McConaughey, Anne Hathaway, Jessica Chastain, Michael Caine, name it. All the usual suspects are in this film, and they all brought in excellent performances. And if you do not weep during the scene with Matthew McConaughey is watching all the videos of all his children growing up, then I don't know what to tell you. Number 5 is The Odyssey, which also might be a controversial take for a lot of people because I've seen a lot of lists and they have this one a little bit higher, and understandably so. But for right now, I just have The Odyssey at number 5, and maybe after multiple rewatches, I might bump it up. But yeah, The Odyssey. Fucking amazing. Go see it. At number 4 is Memento, which I actually watched for the second time in my life before I went to go see The Odyssey. And while there are things about the movie I don't quite understand yet, but I overall get what the movie is going for, this is one of the most nonlinear films I've ever seen. Guy Pearce, he carries this movie, and yeah, this is just one of those films that I just love more and more after rewatches. At number 3 is Batman Begins, which is the beginning of his Dark Knight trilogy. And yeah, after the failures of Batman and Robin, Warner Brothers went to Christopher Nolan and straight up asked him, hey, we need you to make Batman great again, and make Batman great again. He did. This was an excellent jumping off point for a new trilogy. It was a great origin story for Batman. Christopher Nolan took a comic book character and basically did his interpretation of it. My runner-up is Inception, which I think is his, or at least one of his most complex films, but I actually get this one and I just love it more and more after I rewatch it. To me, more so than The Dark Knight, this movie solidified Christopher Nolan as one of the best working modern directors because he can jump from franchise filmmaking and excel in that, but then go in and do his own thing and still succeed. But speaking of The Dark Knight, at number 1 is The Dark Knight. I love this movie so much. It's not just the best Batman film, it's not just one of the best superhero or comic book films. To me, this is just a great film, period. Rest in peace, Heath Ledger. I love his interpretation of the Joker. So many banger lines and sayings within this film, and not just from the Joker. What can I say about The Dark Knight that hasn't already been said? It's not just one of my favorite superhero movies. It's not just one of my favorite Batman movies. It's one of my favorite films, period, because this movie pretty much proved that comic book movies and superhero movies can be taken seriously and still make bank at the box office. So that's my ranking of all 13 of Christopher Nolan's films. Here's a quick recap. You can check it out also on Letterboxd at Lassiter Factor. Thank y'all so much for watching. Do you agree with this list? Do you disagree? How do you rank all of Christopher Nolan's films? Let me know in the comment section below. This your boy Bankful B of the Lassiter Factor. Stay safe, wash your hands. Peace.